very much for taking the time out for this interview. So first of all, congratulations on winning the race.
Thank you very much.
Also smashing the record like by so long. How does it feel?
It feels. I think the feeling is still kind of settling in, and yeah, I'm quite surprised myself. I had no real proper plans as to what time I wanted to finish or anything of that sort. It was just kind of a with my background on the winter spine and having 2 DNFs on that one. My approach is more a case of making the finish line, and then slowly but surely, as your body take shots, given the length of the race, just to be able to at least get over that finish line, even if you have to leopard crawl.
Yeah, it's an achievement to finish that race, regardless of what time you get. So as you got DNF for the 2 winter races, did you do anything to change your training to prepare for the summer race?
I think that's a good question. So the winter and the summer spine are just apples and oranges by comparison. So kit-wise is completely different. More given that we had, on the first day, I think we were even nearing 30 degrees Celsius, and comparing to winter where you're fighting your way through really boggy, wet, snow, sleet, wind, rain, everything in between. And very little daylight as well. So I think that to compare the two is really, really difficult, and that's why I was kind of probably more at ease with the summer version. Knowing that where I'm at the moment is a bit more similar. Currently residing in Guernsey, just a heads up. So that we don't have those conditions, those winter conditions, so to say. So I think that kind of added in my favor. But yeah, winter is still, that's just a different kettle of fish altogether.
Yeah, it's the Northern English and Scottish winters aren't kind.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it was quite hot at the Summer Spine this year. How was it difficult for you, the heat, and how did you cope with it?
No, not at all. So I think maybe that is the South African blood in me that kind of helped with that. But yes, I was actually quite okay with the weather. For me, it was fine. It was actually quite nice to get a bit of sunshine and get my tan on.
Yeah, you struck lucky because it's not usually that nice in the Peak District.
Yeah.
Okay, so in terms of the course, could you just tell us a little bit about the Pennine Way and about the course?
Yeah, sure. So race-wise, it's a 268-mile course, non-stop. So you would have started, we started on Sunday, 8 o'clock in the morning, and you kind of just have to make your way through 7 checkpoints. So they're relatively spaced out. And in between, you have to kind of carry, it's all self-sufficient. You have to carry all your kit with you, starting all the way from a bivy bag, heel food, all the way to even a poo kit. So that's something new and very odd for us. So, so it's very self-sufficient in that sense, and which I kind of, I quite like as well. So you have to kind of know what works for you. Everyone's different, be it with water intake. So they do have, at least having the ability to carry 3 liters, but some people will take more water on the course. So those are the things that actually allows you, gives you the flexibility of kind of making sure that you are comfortable, on your run. Between all the at all the checkpoints, you can then in turn grab hold of your drop bag. From there, you can then kit up and resupply if needs be, and then of course actually getting some proper sleep if that's your remit. My technique was slightly different, so I kind of again went a bit guns blazing, I would say. So didn't get a lot of sleep, and kind of just made my way through the course, and I only find myself probably sleeping about total about 3 hours or so.
Oh, wow.
So very little sleep. But also, just kind of, I think a lot of time at your checkpoints, you also just end up faffing around quite a bit. And, and I think that always adds up to the time that you spend there. So when you actually look at it on paper, you always wonder yourself, wow, it's a long time that you've spent there. But, there's always these, the longer the race, the more tired you become, you kind of, you lose your focus on those, checkpoints. And so that was kind of a really interesting part of the race. So 5 checkpoints, self-sufficient, awesome crew. So they really take care of you, if you can't think anymore. And I think that is kind of where I was very lucky in that sense, is just have someone be like, Tiaan, what do you want to eat? Tiaan, can I call you water bottles? Otherwise I would just be like sitting there and staring into daylight. So into space. So yeah, I think that definitely made a big difference. It's just that, that family community spirit with the spine volunteers. Starting in Edale, finishing in Kirkieto, where the Pennine Waste finish, just kind of making your way through.
How did you tackle sleep deprivation? Because that's not a lot of sleep. What did you do to cope with so little sleep?
It's an interesting question, and even more so, sometimes I get asked, what do you actually what goes through your mind, and like spending 70 plus hours running. And to be honest, I'm not quite sure what the answer is. I don't actually know what I think about, which I think is the beauty of ultra races, where you kind of just space out, and sleep deprivation is probably one of those, it's just an add-on to that as well, where you trying to stay awake, be it by having, in my personal approach is just having a lot of coffee. So I'm a kind of a coffee fanatic, but there's multiple ways of just trying to stay awake. And some people even sing to themselves. I haven't really tried that, because I think I'll probably scare myself with my voice. But so I think there's multiple ways to kind of stay awake, and hopefully find your way to the next sleepy week, and then find some valuable sleep.
Okay. So just obviously sleep deprivation, you will have to do things like drink coffee. What other things are you eating and drinking during the race?
So I made a very rookie mistake by changing my normal nutritional approach for a race. I don't know why I did it, to be honest. I'm still kind of bummed about it. But so my intake was a lot more focused around, like gels, and which I would definitely not recommend to anyone, and like bars and things like that. So I think after the first day, I was just so fed up with any sweet stuff. So normally I'd probably focus more and more like wholesome, nutritious type food, and like nuts and trail mix, and things that's on the salty side as well, because you just get so fed up with sweet stuff. And so that kind of caught up with me later on in the race, where I really struggled to stomach what I actually have in the back of my pack. So that's kind of my approach for the race. And then of course you've got your water, which I normally will have some form of a electrolyte mix that I tend to take with me as well. And then obviously my saving grace is always my co-op chocolate and nut sweets, or the chocolate coated nuts. So that's always an absolute must for me. But again, on the sweet side, so did not really plan for that. But so that's kind of my approach for nutrition, which is something I will probably have to work on still, because that was probably not the best decision or choice for the spine.
Yeah, it's one of those, you've got to practice what you eat before you run, don't you? Otherwise it comes back to haunt you in the middle of the race.
Yeah.
In terms of your training, have you been following like a structured training program, or have you just been seeing how far you can run? What have you been doing to prepare for the race?
Yeah, just kind of winging it. So whilst being in Guernsey, it's we're not as fortunate to have like proper trails to train on. So we have the cliff areas, and which is fantastic to run on. But to simulate what you can expect in the Pennines is really difficult unless you actually live on that side of the world. So I think training wise was very much on the cliffs for myself, and then a lot of road running actually, because there's obviously a lot of roads, and so that's kind of just mixing it up between the two, but no formal plan or program or anything of that sort. It's kind of just kind of taking it day by day and running as I feel.
Oh, good. I think I've noticed that more with people who do a lot of trail running or longer distance running. There's no plan. It's just see how you feel, run for as far as you want, and then just go from there each day.
Absolutely, because I think also, I mean, with a race like the Spine, I mean, no one can realistically, train in a week, say 270 miles. I think it's probably a bit of a tall order on your own body. So that's why I think where the mental aspect in these races are playing a far significant, more significant role. If you have that mental resilience, then I think you'll definitely succeed.
Yeah, I suppose it's more of a, I mean, it's a physical game, but it's very much a mental game as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, were there any highlights to the race for you? Was there any of your favorite parts of the race that you really enjoyed?
I've got to rave about the lasagna. It's not a rumor. It is true. It's fantastic. So I did try and attempt the record of, I think it was 7 helpings in Alston, but I only got to 3. So, yeah, so that was definitely a high from an eating point of view. And then I think just my personal high was just reaching the Cheviots in the early hours just before the finish of the race. And there's this. I can't remember what they call it, but it's a kind of a cotton shrub that grows all over there in and around the Cheviots. And as the sun was starting to show face, it's kind of like the rays just hit those cotton buds, and you can just see it looks like almost like a snow field, like the field just covered in snow. And it was just the most amazing view ever. And it was a fantastic way to finish the race, to be honest.
Oh wow. What did it feel like crossing the finish line? Was it emotional?
I was definitely ecstatic. I was somewhat in pain, but as I think everyone would have been at that stage, and yeah, just happy to be finishing and and touching that wall there by the border hotel.
Obviously you were tired, legs tired. Was there any bad niggles or injuries through the race?
Yes, funny enough, from Bellingham, that's the last CP. I started to pick up a bit of an ITB issue, which is a bit bizarre because I never really had those issues at all. So we were just kind of like nurturing it from Bellingham to the finish and not pushing it too hard. Apart from that, I'm actually very fortunate that I've got no injuries, because normally I tend to just wreck myself, and then then it's months afterwards before I can even see another start line again.
Yeah, I think it's a common problem for most runners, injuries.
Yeah.
What would you recommend for anyone who wants to give the Spine race a go?
Ooh, that's a good question. So, I mean, I think depending on, as I said, with the mental resilience and your fitness, I mean, I'd probably suggest maybe starting, getting a taste, be it with a challenger of the race. So that's the sister race of the Spine, the longer distance one, and maybe attempt that first. If everything goes as planned, then definitely I can suggest or recommend doing the full Spine. Otherwise, I mean, if you are very confident, and you've got your your kit is sorted, so that's one area that I can definitely just emphasize on, is just making sure your kit's fine, and test your kit as well, and be comfortable with it. And yeah, absolutely, you can definitely tackle the Spine.
Were you happy with all your kit choices apart from food?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think so. That's at least one part where I think I'm fairly covered in that sense, where that I tend to use it quite a bit. Not necessarily with races, but sometimes on expeditions and things like that. So I do enjoy just being in the outdoors, and what better place to actually use it is when you're there. So I think I'm fairly okay, and glad I did that, and have that comfort around the kit that I was entrusted to for the Spine.
Oh, good. So you've done the spine and you smashed it. What is next for you?
Ooh, so I've put my name in the hat for the Tour de Glacier. So that's a 450-kilometer race in Italy. So that's in and was pretty much around the Aosta Valley, with a lot of D plus, a lot of ups and downs, a lot of it's just an awesome event. So unfortunately with COVID, I wasn't able to make the previous. There was a cancellation on the previous event, and then the year after, that being last year. Yeah, unfortunately, my plans just didn't, the stars just didn't align to attempt the race. So that'll be in September. So I'm hoping to participate in that one if all goes as planned and no injuries. Fingers crossed. And then then we'll have to see. Maybe winter spine. I still have a bugbear with winter spine, so have DNF'd in that one twice already. I'm really just hoping to get a finish on the winter one still. So that would be then for next year, Jan.